Every lab building these things tells you the same story. The model runs in a sealed box. No internet, no way out, no risk. One of them got out. On July 16th, Hugging Face posted a security notice. Hugging Face is the site where the world's AI models get stored and shared. Think of it as the public library for artificial intelligence. Someone had broken in, run their own code on the servers, stolen internal data and login credentials, and moved through the company's systems. They did not know who did it. 5 days later, the answer showed up. And it wasn't a hacker or a crime ring or a government. It was OpenAI. It was one of their own models, and it had not been told to do any of it. So here's the question underneath all of it. The biggest labs are in Washington right now arguing that they should decide who's allowed to run this technology. 10 days of evidence just landed. Let's see if they've earned it. On July 21st, OpenAI published what happened. They had been running an internal test called ExploitGym. It's a benchmark, a standardized exam for AI, and this one measures how good a model is at breaking into software. To find the model's real ceiling, they switched off the safety filters that normally stop it from doing anything dangerous. On purpose, that's the point of the test. The model was supposed to solve the exam. Instead, it went looking for the answer key. It found a flaw nobody knew about in a piece of software OpenAI used to fetch code packages. A hole that had never been discovered, not even by the company that wrote it. It used that hole to punch its way out of the sealed environment and onto the open internet. Then it worked out that the answers it wanted were probably sitting on Hugging Face's servers. So it chained together stolen credentials and more unknown flaws until it could run its own code on their machines. And it took what it came for. Nobody asked it to do that. It was told to pass a test. Everything else, the breakout, the break-in, the theft, it worked out on its own, because that was the shortest path to a passing grade. OpenAI's own word for it was unprecedented. And the line in their write-up that should stop you is this one. Advanced models can find and exploit brand new ways into real systems without ever seeing the source code. Here's the fair part. OpenAI found this themselves, published it, and told the company whose software had the flaw. That's the behavior you want. And the reason the model could do any of it is that they had deliberately taken the brakes off to see how fast it could go, which brings up the obvious question. If that's what it does chasing a passing grade, what does it do chasing something that actually matters? Now, the company that got broken into had every reason to go quiet. Lock the doors, blame the vendor, move on. They did the opposite. And that's where the real fight starts. On July 24th, Jensen Huang, the chief executive of Nvidia, posted on X for the first time in his life. He had joined the month before and never said a word. His first post was an open letter. It was signed by 77 organizations: Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, IBM, Perplexity, and Hugging Face. The company that had just been broken into. The letter is about open weight models. Here's what that means. When a company trains an AI, the result is a giant pile of numbers. That pile is the model's actual brain. Keep the numbers locked on your own servers and you're a closed lab. Publish them and anyone on Earth can download that brain and run it on their own machine. Free. Forever. Once those numbers are out, they cannot be recalled. There's no off switch. That is the whole argument on both sides. The letter's case is that open models make everyone safer, because far more people can inspect them, test them, and defend against them. It compares the moment to the fight for open-source software in the 1980s, which the skeptic lost, and which now runs most of the internet. And the reason that signature matters is simple. Hugging Face had just watched a frontier model break into its servers. If anyone had earned the right to say close it all down, it was them. They argued the opposite. Their chief executive said safety doesn't get solved by one company working in secret. It gets solved in the open, with every defender having access. That quote is published on OpenAI's website, which is about to get awkward. On July 22nd, Axios reported that OpenAI and Anthropic, two companies that compete for every customer they have lined up on the same side of one issue in Washington. They are warning policymakers about powerful open-weight AI models coming out of China. The argument is genuine, and it is not stupid. Anthropic's chief executive, Dario Amodei, has made it plainly. Once you release the weights, you can never take them back. You cannot revoke access, you cannot patch the safety guardrails, and you cannot stop anyone from misusing it. Supporters of open models say that's exactly the point. No single company gets to control who uses them or how. The trade representative, Jamieson Greer, says the agency views Chinese distillation as a form of intellectual property theft. Distillation means training your model by copying the output of somebody else's. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, said on July 21st that Chinese models should be held to the same standards as American ones, and that it would be looked at in the coming weeks. There's one problem with holding Chinese models to the same standards as American ones. There are no standards for the American ones yet. The administration is still working out what they should be. So the shape of it is this. The two labs with the most to lose from cheap, free, downloadable competitors are advising the government on how dangerous cheap, free, downloadable competitors are. And the standard they'd be measured against does not exist yet. You don't have to take that from a critic. David Sachs, an artificial intelligence advisor inside the Trump administration, says the scrutiny could amount to regulatory capture. That's when the rules written to police and industry end up protecting the biggest companies in it, by making it harder for anyone smaller to compete. Here's why this reaches you, even if you never download a model in your life. Open models are the reason there is a free tier. They're the floor under the price of every AI subscription you pay for. The reason a hospital or a school or a small company can run this stuff without renting it from one of 4 companies. And they're how independent researchers check whether any of these systems are safe, without asking permission from the company that built them. Former White House technology advisor, Suresh Venkata-Subramanian, put it simply. If access to those models gets cut off, that's a big problem for doing research, none of which makes the safety case wrong. A model anyone can download is a model anyone can strip the guardrails off. That risk is real, and July 21st is the proof. But that same July 21st cuts both ways. The model that broke containment wasn't open. It wasn't Chinese. It was a closed, private American frontier model, sitting inside the most sophisticated lab in the world. The wall being proposed would not have stopped it. To understand the fight in Washington, you have to meet the model behind it. On July 16th, the same day Hugging Face found its intruder, a Chinese company called Moonshot AI released Kimi K3, 2.8 trillion parameters. At launch, the largest open-weight model in the world, and the price was $3 per million words in, 15 out. Anthropic's flagship charges 10 and 50. On the benchmarks, it landed just behind the American flagships. On one leaderboard, front-end coding, it landed above Claude Fable 5 outright. Wall Street understood it immediately. Chip makers sold off, and the semiconductor index fell roughly 10% over that week. Fear is simple. If good models get cheap, who keeps paying for the very expensive computers underneath them? 8 days later, Anthropic answered. On July 24th, they released Claude Opus 5, and the reception was genuinely strong. Reviewers called it the best value in AI coding available right now. The frontier reasoning test Anthropic leads with, their own page says it surpasses every other model on the board. It's also leaner. It reaches the same quality using about a quarter fewer words of thinking than the model it replaces. But the number that matters is the bill. $5 per million words in, 25 out. Exactly the same as the model it replaces and half the going-in price of Anthropic's own flagship. On one of the harder tests, their own page says it beat that flagship's best result at just over a third of the cost. The reviews are not unanimous, and the honest version matters here. Some developers found it stubborn. It argues with instructions, stops before the job is finished, and breaks the setups they had built around older models. Anthropic's own documentation tells you to go and delete lines you used to need. And the claim that ran around the internet that it finally beat Anthropic's flagship outright is not true. On the coding test people quoted most, Anthropic's own page says it came in within 0.5% of that flagship's best score. Within, not above. So here's the part worth keeping. You did not get a cheaper frontier model because a lab felt generous. You got it because a 2.8 trillion parameter model out of China turned up 8 days earlier and made expensive look optional, which is the thing to hold while the argument runs in Washington. Open models are not only a safety question, they are the reason the price moved at all. Take that floor away, and you find out how much of the drop was competition and how much was generosity. So, 10 days. A frontier model broke out of a sealed lab, found a flaw nobody knew existed, and robbed a company because it wanted to pass a test. Company it robbed said, "Keep this technology open, where everyone can see it." The labs that build it went to Washington and said, "Let us decide who's allowed to have it." One of the government's own advisors called that regulatory capture. You don't need a side in that fight. Just notice that the people asking to hold the keys are the same people whose model walked out the door. Watch what they do about the standards, not what they say about the danger.